Welcome, everybody, to the Nightly News Podcast. We are back for the summer term, and of course, we start off with everybody's favorite guest, Adrienne Thoman. Adrienne, welcome back to the podcast.
I love that warm welcome. Thanks for having me back.
Of course. Well, I want to start off with, it's always interesting to have you on the show because obviously you have been the most prolific guest in Nightly News Podcast history because we have you on each and every month to talk about all the wonderful events that we have here at the college. But what's interesting about this term, Adrienne, is that we are ending this term with our 100th podcast.
That's so incredible.
And I want to put just kind of a little note out there for everybody. Our 100th podcast will air on August 27th and will be with President Linda Fedrizzi-Williams. So we are super excited about having Dr. Linda Fedrizzi-Williams back on the show. But we are also going to be, hopefully, this is still tentative and we'll announce a little bit more details as it comes. We are going to have a little soiree to celebrate the 100th podcast. So, of course, Adrienne, I hope that you'll be there. We don't have a date just yet, but we will be doing it. Hopefully, it will be that week, and it could be on that day that the 100th podcast comes out. So we want to invite everyone who's ever been on the podcast down, and we hope to have a nice time. So,
congratulations on that. That's huge. 100 episodes.
Over 3.5 years.
Wow. And it's such a great opportunity for our students to be a part of this. So
that's really why I do it, to be honest with you. I mean, it's fun to do. I love having people like you down, and I work so hard trying to get the students down. I'd say 75-80% of the shows we have at least one, if not multiple students on, and that's really why we do it. We've also, over the last several years, gotten several podcasts off the ground, both from students and from other staff members and faculty such as yourself with your Pirate Life podcast, which is going strong. So we just appreciate the opportunity to work with students and to really give them a skill that now is needed. You know, businesses are starting their own podcasts. Almost anywhere you go, it's something that's a possibility. So if you know how to do this, you're bringing a skill to the table that maybe other people don't have. And I think that's a very important part about it. So keep an eye out for that. Episode 100 with Dr. Linda Fedrizzi-Williams will drop on August the 27th, and I will actually be doing a best of show for episode number 99, so I'm looking forward to that. We haven't done a best of show yet, so I've got a lot of really cool ideas for who's going to be on. So, all right, well, Adrienne, we are here to talk about July events. You know, it's something about the summer term, and I don't know if you feel this way. In fact, I'm positive you feel this way. Something about the summer term that's just a little bit different because
I love summer term.
We get so many new students and so many, of our on-campus residential students on campus for the first time, and we see some just different energy and vibe in the air than maybe in other terms. What do you think about that?
Well, people are outside more. It's summer, and I feel so many of the activities are going to new places, experiencing new things. Students are out on the quad, they're swimming in the pool. It's just I love the summer term. I think it's so fun.
Well, we are here today to talk about, especially for some of you new students who have never, been on campus before. We're going to try to give you some ideas of some awesome things we have coming up in the month of July. Well, Adrienne, the first thing that I wanted to chat with you about, one thing that's very clear to see on the activities calendar for July is that Word Wednesday returns on the 17th, 24th, and 31st. That takes place each Wednesday, those 3 Wednesdays, at 12:30 in the Night and Day Cafe. So, since you've started Word Wednesday, what's some of the feedback that you've received?
I think the new reiteration of Word Wednesday is working really, really well. Tom Palmieri, our college counselor, and our new counseling intern, Elizabeth Yoder, they have been leading the preparation for each week, and it's been going really well. So Wednesdays, we get down there early, and we have Chef Dave makes us these awesome box lunches that we can give everybody that come, or the first 8 that come. And it's been really successful, I think. The conversations have been great. Students have been open to joining us and participating, and it's a little more casual, and there's traffic coming around us because we're right in the ATEC lounge. And it works. It's really, I think, been going well.
So how long has it been over in the Night and Day Cafe ATEC lounge?
We've only had 2 sessions so far. We started it right in June, so the first 2 weeks of June. But once we come back for the summer term, our thought is that we're going to run it every week with a couple exceptions just because of other activities that are happening.
Fantastic. One of the things that I found that we enjoyed coming to Word Wednesday as a club, have you had any other clubs come all together to participate?
Not as a club group activity. We haven't had that same level of this club is going to come attend. It's been more individual students that have come or groups of friends. So clubs, that would be a thing you could do. It'd be fun.
Get on it.
Yeah.
All right, Adrienne, another thing that we are going to talk about, and we will, just as a note, we will have Tom and Liz, the new intern in the Counseling Center, on later this term, so we look forward to talking with them about that just a little bit. We are also going to talk about the internship fair. This will take place on Thursday, July 25th, in the Conference Center at Central Penn College from 10 a.m. to noon. This is always one of my favorite things and one of my favorite events. Part of my job, and I always love to say this, something about my job that I'm not sure a lot of people understand, and it's probably sort of you too. Yeah, we have our classes to teach, right? And of course, that's a major part of our job. We have our advising, but we also have the opportunity to sort of go in different directions with our careers and our jobs here at Central Penn College. Mm-hmm. I mean, this studio and the nightly news to a point is really part of what I want to do with my time here. And so each and every year we have goals to fill out, and we sort of tailor those goals based around our desires and our ways that we want to give back to the campus. And one of the ways that I have chosen to give back to the campus is to be involved with career services. Mm-hmm. I am always willing and able to help them at all of their events. I try to give them as much opportunity as I can to get into my classroom, or I'll even make assignments where they have to go meet with career services and maybe do a mock interview or a resume or something like that.
Such a good idea.
And so one of the things that I always try to do, I have a lot of people that ask me why. And I probably shared this on the podcast before, but I really, really struggled, even when I got out of Shippensburg with my master's degree, to find work. It was very, very difficult for me at the time. And, I had a lot of interviews, and I felt I did very well. And I even had a couple of positions where they told me, hey, you're going to get this job, just hang tight. And I never did.
Yeah.
So finally, after that last one, where that exact scenario happened, I just thought to myself, I whatever it is I'm doing something wrong, and I need to figure out what it is. So I went to, it was called a Social Media Summit. It was a conference they had over at HU. And the reason I went was because the very first panel was a job search panel. And basically everything that I was doing wrong had to do and stem from the fact that I didn't take advantage of the career services at either of my previous alma maters. To my defense, and again, in hindsight, I look back and say, sure, I probably could have done a lot more. I didn't even know that it was really a thing. I knew that it existed, but I didn't know what opportunities there were. It was never presented to me when I was in college as something that was important to do. Mm-hmm. Even, hey, go to career services and get your resume in order before you leave here by a professor, an advisor, or anybody. And I get it. That's maybe not necessarily all faculty don't necessarily buy into that, Adrienne, but I don't want students to make that same mistake. And as soon as I started making a couple of minor changes and networking with my previous school's career service office, it changed everything. And so that's why I love to be involved with career services. Also, and this is something you might be able to speak to, a lot of people think, especially this one, particularly internship fair, oh, well, I'm a freshman. I don't need to go. What would you talk about? What might be some good reasons that even a brand new student on campus, hasn't been here a couple weeks, might go to something like this?
Oh, my goodness. First of all, well, let me just go back to your point about when you first get out in the workforce, because I had a similar experience. When I got out of undergrad, I thought I did everything right. I did get good grades for the most part. I did participate. I was active. I was in clubs. I was student government president.
I didn't even know that.
Oh, yes.
Wow. How about that? And you went to?
I went to Hack, and then I went to Shippensburg.
All right. Two places I also went.
Yeah. So I was motivated and involved, and I thought, well, it's going to be easy because I did everything right. But I didn't. I got out, and it took me a year and a half to get a job in the field. Now, I did get a job. I ended up a really, really awesome dental practice took me in, and I worked in their office. I learned a ton, and they were super flexible about giving me opportunities, even though it wasn't a communications job. I got to help with their process of going digital. I got to help with the process of them developing their brochures. So there were elements that they pulled me into. But any opportunity that students have to make connections is so key, because when I finally got that job a year and a half after being out of school, it was because I had made a connection through an internship. Somebody that didn't get me the job, but it got me the interview. And to be able to go in there, having somebody recognize my name and pull me in for that interview, that was key. That's how it happened. So every opportunity you have to connect is so important.
I actually said because I had freshman seminar students who literally asked me that same question, because it was like 3 weeks. We're in week 3 and we're going to an internship fair, and they're all just literally in their first classes of college. And he said, listen, these same people that you're going to see are going to be here next year. And the following year, when I go to the internship fair, I'm starting to know most of the people. Now, of course, there is some turnover and there's some new companies that come. But the same core companies that are always there, I now know these people. They know me by name. I know them by name. And that's how it works for students. So if you're here, and since we're accelerated, realistically, even for a bachelor's, if you're going full time, 2.5 years from now, you're going to be looking for an internship. Mm-hmm. So if you see and run into those couple of people and just get to know them and understand and let them know your goals and let them know your background, that's really going to carry over when it comes time for interviews, because a lot of these big companies like Hershey or Pinnacle Health, they're hiring all the time. Mm-hmm. They always need people. So while the position you might exactly want might not necessarily be there, they might have something very similar to that. So,
and wouldn't it be nice to have an idea at the beginning of what they might be looking for?
Exactly.
Maybe being involved in something like the Nightly News podcast is something that's really key when they are looking at resumes and pulling in their student interns. So knowing that in the beginning and saying, all right, I'm going to make sure I talk to Professor Miller and I get involved, or I'm going to make sure having that from the beginning is great at the start of your time here.
And I would be remiss if I didn't say, because I know Kristen would yell at me if I don't say this. Bottom line is, with the internship fair, it's not just all internships. A lot of people have part-time jobs, community service opportunities, or hiring for full-time. So even if you're not necessarily looking for an internship, you're just maybe looking for a part-time job or even a career position, please come that day to the internship fair, which will take place on July 25th. That's Thursday of week 3. From 10 to 12 in the conference center. One more quick shout out that I want to give, and then we will move directly to everyone's favorite segment, Adrienne's Featured 3. The CPC film series returns again this term with Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix with Dr. Marcy Rovin.
Yes.
Now, I want to kind of back this up a little bit, because I'm just so happy to know that we are able to screen this film this year. I know that there were a couple minor issues last year. Can you tell us about that?
So we're always legal. We purchase performance rights to be able to broadcast these movies. And there was something with, was it Percy Jones? There was another movie that was coming out that the company had restricted our ability to get the rights to show the Harry Potter series, all across the board for the entire year. Nobody was able to show Harry Potter. So we thought we would be able to do it, and then this other film was getting released, so it limited us.
Fantastic Beasts, was that the one?
Was that what it was?
It might have been, because that's by the same author.
Okay, then that must have been it.
I do enjoy the Harry Potter movies. I've seen all of them. I actually have seen all of them in the theater. I have seen all of them on IMAX, which any movie that you can see on IMAX, you got to see on IMAX. I honestly don't know, Adrienne, where the closest IMAX theater is. There used to be one at the Whitaker Center.
There isn't one at Whitaker anymore.
It is no longer an IMAX. It is now 3D, which in its own right is still very nice.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
IMAX is a very specific type of sound system, and a couple of years ago, the IMAX people wanted the Whitaker Center to upgrade their facilities, which would have cost beaucoup dollars. I don't know the exact figure. This is all in the news and public records, so you guys could look this up if you wanted. But the Whitaker Center said, we're a nonprofit. We don't have beaucoup to throw at IMAX, and they parted ways. So now the Whitaker Center does still show movies, but it's just more 3D and just a decent sound system, but it's not IMAX. I do know that when we go to see IMAX, we go to the Frank Theaters down in New York off the Queen Street exit. They have like Star Wars and, you know, all the big movies they have in the IMAX, which is well worth going down there to see a movie. I don't go to a lot of movies anymore. I used to go all the time. So when I do, I usually try to like do that kind of stuff. Or I take my son. My wife and I, we don't go to the movies all that much. Although I wish we would. There's just nothing that really ever comes out that super interests me. But that being said, we are very much looking forward to July 26th, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix with Dr. Marcy Rovin. And Dr. Rovin will be on our podcast next week to talk a little bit more about what she will be discussing during her presentation prior to the film. But Adrienne, I love these CPC film series. I look back to when I did mine as one of the best days of my life.
Really?
Yes.
It was a fun movie and discussion.
The fact that my friends and family were there, my colleagues were there. I talked about a movie that really had a profound impact on me. And I know
Lebowski.
But that's the thing. When you think of Lebowski, you're like, how did it have a profound impact on you, man? Like, seriously. But it was really when it came out, it's one of the movies that turned me on to film as an art. And I know that that's odd to say, but back then, I was, I'll watch, the summer blockbusters, and I have all my ticket stubs from when I was a kid, so I was real into movies, but I never really realized movies as an art until I started watching Lebowski. And like I said, I was 15, 16, 17 years old when I saw it, and it really did change the way that I felt about film, and it was just... I love the opportunity. I'm so glad that our faculty are taking advantage of this opportunity. And I got to give a big shout out to Dr. Brian Ellsworth, who is one of the, I don't want to say the person, but one of the people who was in charge of getting this off the ground. Yeah. So I'm hoping they're going to let me go again, but I don't want to step in front of someone else who wants to go.
Well, do you have a second movie picked?
I'm a big Tarantino fan.
Oh.
I don't know. So far, mine has been the only R-rated movie that's shown, and I was never told that it couldn't be. I'm just not necessarily sure that I would go in that direction with Tarantino. I'd probably find something a little different.
You'd probably get good discussion, though.
There's a lot going on with Tarantino, and... his last few movies haven't necessarily been my favorite, though. Have you seen the one that's coming out this summer?
No.
With Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, really?
I think it was called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's going to be a good one. So I'm definitely going to go see that. So I haven't soured on him yet. Probably one of the ones I would do would be something from Christopher Nolan, but not like the Dark Knight series. Mm-hmm. So Christopher Nolan has, well before he was doing Dark Knight, he had a ton of movies. Memento. Have you ever seen Memento?
Oh, yes.
It's one of my favorite movies of all time. And I think that might be an interesting one to do. Don't know if that's popular enough. You need to write that down as a movie to watch. It's wild. And it's not like gross or anything. Some people try to get you to watch weird movies, but I promise you it'll blow your mind. Right. But that being said, I certainly look forward to having Dr. Rovin on next week to talk about Harry Potter. So we're going to move right along, though, Adrienne, and it's time for everybody's favorite segment on the Nightly News podcast, Adrienne's featured 3 events for the month of July. Adrienne, let's start off with number 1.
All right, number 1, we're kicking it off. Start of the summer term, we have the Summer Club Fair. It's going to be July 10th from 11 to 1, a great opportunity to come out and meet all of our student organizations, meet representatives from there. We usually have free pizza, so you'll get lunch while you're chatting it up with everybody, and a good opportunity to see what you can get involved in here at Central Penn.
This is a big one for us. Unfortunately, we lost a couple people to graduation, and I really can't keep saying unfortunately, because obviously I'm super happy that Dylan and Andrew Day he's going to be here for one more term, but he's at his internship now. So to lose 2 of our senior members is tough, but of course we're happy for them. So, yeah. But Club Fair is very important. If you're a new student, please make sure you come out. Even if you're faculty or staff, please either bring your classes out or try to get as many people to come out to this, because this is really the lifeblood of our campus, Adrienne, is our clubs. I mean, you do everything you can to get people involved and do an amazing job of that, but the getting involved with the clubs is such an important part too, and we need people.
Well, students, you learn so much in the classroom, yes, 100%. But there are opportunities to add on to that, to build on all the amazing things that they're learning with you in class. They can then practice that through their club work. They're going to learn how to work with other people. They're going to learn how to be part of a team, maybe how to delegate, how to plan an event, how to market something that they're doing. There's so much learning that happens outside of that to support what they're doing in the classroom. So I just think it's such a great opportunity for our students to get involved.
I couldn't agree more, and we certainly encourage you to stop by the Nightly News booth and talk to us about what major opportunities we have, including opportunities to call athletic events. So please stop by and chat with us, but certainly just come out and just look around, see what's there, and just talk to some people. We're all very nice people.
And new this year, the Student Government Association is going to end the day with a bonfire. So that night from, I believe, 6 to 9, they are actually going to have a bonfire down in the Student Fellowship area. So you'll get to hang out again with some of the people that you're meeting and just have a little social time to kick off week 1.
Great second day of class.
Yeah.
All right, moving right along, Adrienne. We're ready for number 2 on Adrienne's Featured 3 for July.
So the Activities Office is coordinating with the Business Office to bring an entrepreneurship series. Now, I got to give a shout out to SGA President Bree McCoy, because she said something to me earlier this year about, hey, can we have something to learn how to start a business? And you know what? It was a really good idea. So we collaborated. We got to talk to some members of some business faculty, and we worked together. They had a panel discussion earlier this month where they had several entrepreneurs share their stories and their experiences. And then the Activities Office is actually going to bring in 3 additional speakers, the first being on July 16th. It's going to be Juliette Jones, and she will share elements of her entrepreneurship experience. So that's going to be Tuesday night from 6 to 7. Doors will open at 5:30. We'll have light refreshments to be able to come in and get settled, and then the program will be 6 to 7.
I love it. I love this idea. I think that it's really cool that this. I do remember when Brianna was running. This is one of the things she said that she wanted. She wanted a little bit more outreach with the community, and that's the one thing for students. Like, you may never have an opportunity to have somebody that's this influential in your life, and you can stay after and you can meet them and chat with them. It's just it's a win-win all around. So July 16th, the Entrepreneurship Series in the Capitol Blue Cross Theater. All right, Adrienne, what is the final number 3 event for July?
The final event that I'd like to share is one being put together by our Activities Advisory Board. Back in February, they went to the APCA conference in Hershey, and they heard a ton of speakers and comedians and motivational speakers and musicians and just a ton of performers that they could choose who they wanted to bring to campus. And one of the people that caught their attention was a comedian. His name is Kayvon, and he is coming on the 23rd. So he'll be here, 23rd, Capitol Blue Cross Theater, shows at 7. And he actually, how does he refer to himself? The most famous half Persian comedian in the world. And then he says he's the only one. He's a funny dude. He's going to be great. It's a free show. It's going to be open to the public too. So everybody's welcome to come and laugh and enjoy the evening. I would say it's probably like not for little kids. It'll be, an adult crowd because it's a comedian.
Now, you mentioned the APCA conference in Hershey, but I also heard you discuss the APCA conference in New York City that you're going to. Is one regional and one national?
So they actually target 2 different things. The one that we go to in Hershey, we take our programming board, and it really focuses on event planning and different performers that we can preview and see live to determine who to bring to campus. It's very programming based. The one that we go to in New York City, which happens in July, is we take our student government there, and it's much more leadership based, leadership focused.
Well, Adrienne, that's going to do it for another episode. I will do a quick recap. Of course, on July 10th, day number 2 of the new term, we have the Summer Club Fair in ATEC lobbies from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. SGA will close out the day with a bonfire at the Student Fellowship area from 6 to 9. Word Wednesday continues throughout the term on Wednesdays at 12:30 to 1 in the Night and Day Cafe. It'll debut on the 17th and be also on the 24th and 31st. Don't forget the Entrepreneurship Series that takes place on July 16th, featuring Juliette Jones. It's from 6 to 7 p.m. with the doors opening at 5:30. Also, save the date for July 23rd with comedian Kayvon, who'll be in the Capitol Blue Cross Theater at 7 p.m. And just a couple of days later, on July 25th, the Career Services Internship Fair on the Conference Center from 10 to 12. And on July 26th, the CPC film series, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix with Dr. Marcy Rovin. Stay tuned next week for Dr. Rovin on the podcast. Adrienne, thank you so much, as always, for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoy being able to come here and talk to you and share these opportunities with our students.
It's always such a pleasure. And certainly any new students, please make Adrienne your new best friend. She will make sure that you get involved all around campus.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Adrienne, again, thank you so much for being here. And we will chat with you again in August.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. That's it for another episode of the Nightly News Podcast. Stay tuned. We will have Maggie Wagner and Taylor Lentz, along with graduating student and Nightly News Club member Austin Steiner. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, it's Community Relations Coordinator Curtis Volker, and you're tuned in to the Nightly News Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller. I'm recording here today at the Nasir Harris Podcast Studio at the Boyer House of Central Penn College. I'm sitting in today with some fine people from the Nursing and Health Sciences Department, and we are going to start off with the gentleman to my left, Austin Steiner, Nightly News Club member. Austin, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks, Professor Miller.
You're very welcome, and I wanted to point out before we move further along, you're almost done. You're going to be graduating here. You're done with your coursework at the end of this term, and then beginning of next term, which would be summer, you're doing your field work, correct?
That's correct.
So where are you going to be heading for that?
We don't know yet.
TBD, right?
Yes.
Well, honestly, Austin, what's very interesting about you is you are one of the first opportunities that we've had, first people that we've had from the health sciences in the Nightly News, which is wonderful because my goal is, yes, it's for some of our journalism students, but we really want it across campus. And now we are as eclectic as we've ever been. We have somebody from health sciences, we have somebody from accounting. So really the bottom line is being a good writer is so important in almost any field that you're going into. To see that, students coming into the workplace have some writing experience. I don't care what field you're in. It's something that's really beneficial to you. So I just, from me personally, thank you very much for being so involved with the last year. It's just been a pleasure to have you, and you've really been able to give us, a little bit more well-rounded publication. So I appreciate that very much. Well, we're being joined here by two of our PTA faculty, Taylor Lentz and Maggie Wagner. To the both of you, it's a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you for making time.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Well, what I am going to do is I'm going to turn most of this over to Austin. I do have a couple of questions that we'll wrap up with, but Austin's got a ton of things to talk about with Professors Wagner and Lentz, so I'm going to kick it right on over to you, Austin.
All right. Thanks, Professor Miller. Professor Lentz, we're going to start with you.
Okay.
So just give us a little bit about your background, how long you've been a clinician as an athletic trainer,
Sure.
and then as a PTA, and then why you came over to academia.
Sure. So I started with my bachelor's in athletic training from Bridgewater College in Virginia. So I practiced mostly with men's and women's basketball. That was my specialty. That's what I preferred to work with the most. So I worked with a local high school. So I worked with Lebanon Catholic High School and primarily spent time with their men's and women's basketball, like I mentioned. And then I just felt like something else was missing. So I decided to go back to school. So I actually am a graduate from here, from Central Penn. So I went for a physical therapy assistant, graduated in 2012 with that. So having the combination of both athletic training and PTA was so beneficial that I could work not just with athletes in my field, but I could also work with patients of all ages as well. So I really appreciated that. So I worked primarily in a hospital. I did inpatient rehab, loved working with patients. Primarily, I worked with neuro patients. So I had a lot of stroke population, a lot of traumatic brain injuries, amputees, prosthetic training, absolutely loved it. But then I just felt like a part of me was missing. As much as I loved educating patients, I wanted something more. So the amazing opportunity opened here at Central Penn, and I could not wait to take advantage of it.
I think that's very unique that you went here and then you teach here. Now, I didn't go here, but I kind of had the same thing when I was still a part-timer at Hack, because I went to Hack and then I got to teach at Hack. And I actually was a colleague with one of my instructors, which is really kind of cool.
And that's how I am as well. So Dr. Wolf and Dr. Patterson were my professors when I was here. So when you guys have difficulties with school, I know exactly what you're feeling because I've been in those seats. I have been through exactly what you've been through. So I feel like it does give me a different connection with our students, is having that understanding of, look, I know what you're going through, and here is how you can make this better, how to succeed in our program.
I'm going to pass it over to Professor Wagner here.
My turn.
So you could speak a little bit about yourself. You're a student.
Yes.
You're a clinician. You're a graduate from here.
All of the
Jump
above.
into some of that for
So
me, please.
I feel like my story is almost the same as Professor Lentz here, where I am an alum. I graduated in 2007, so a little longer. And then I went immediately into outpatient. So we were kind of opposite. She was inpatient. I was outpatient. So I worked with a lot of ortho patients, chronic pain patients. Specifically, I started kind of honing in my skills on manual therapy, so myofascial release. I did a lot of continuing ed on that, and that was kind of my niche. That's what I like to do. And then one of my favorite things was to be a CI for students. So our program has 2 affiliations a year, and each time I would take a student. So I would take a student 2 times a year just because I really enjoyed it. And so that's sort of what brought me into teaching. Is I liked to teach my students and I liked to teach my patients, but I kind of wanted to mold the field a little differently. And so again, this opportunity came up where I got to work under Nicole. I was her first class, actually. So it's sort of kind of special for me to be able to help her with the classes now and kind of mold the field a little differently, instead of directly with my patients, but with the therapists who are going to be working with my patients then.
Excellent.
My story's not as long.
Sorry, guys.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks. So, Professor Lentz,
Yes.
you recently just released an article about an ergonomic
Yes.
evaluation. Tell us what that is for some people who
Sure.
might not know, and what they can expect, and how it might help everybody.
Okay, so ergonomics plays a huge role in all of our lifestyles. And I think a lot of people think that ergonomics is just a health science thing, that only we need to know what's going on to help better suit our patients and to help our patients with positioning and things like that. But really, every one of us sits at a desk at some point during our workday, right? So whether we're here at school or if we're at home, if we're online teaching, that plays a huge role, or if you're in a front office somewhere. Really, ergonomics is just the study of our body and our positioning and how we do so. So we need to remember that when we're sitting, to have that nice posture, because I think a lot of the time people don't realize they have tightness until you bring it up. So you're talking about ergonomics and they're like, oh, you know what, I definitely feel it in my upper traps, or I feel some tightness in my neck, or something like that.
My lower back's real stiff
Exactly.
lately.
So as people starting to be aware of things, then you start noticing your body more. So the reason I did this blog is I wanted to educate not just our faculty and staff, but also students as well, in understanding that our positioning directly affects our life and our lifestyle. So if I'm able to sit at my desk and have great positioning, great posture, if I'm able to sit in an adjustable office height chair, so I'm sitting at a 90-degree angle with my legs, or that my feet are flat on the floor, we shouldn't be up on our tippy toes, or we shouldn't be sitting so low that our knees are higher than our hips, or when I'm sitting in my chair, I should have nice back posture, not hunching over my desk or not sitting back too far. Thinking about our monitor height. A lot of the time, our monitors should be about 20 inches from our face. Sometimes monitors are up too high and people are looking down or looking up at their screen. And that's a problem. And that's where our job really needs to make sure that we're educating not just our students, not just our patients, but also those that we work with as well. So we talk about injury prevention, and how just injury prevention in our own job, when we're spending extended periods of time at our desks, that can play such a huge role. So if we think of our faculty and staff having good posture, it's going to decrease the chance of people calling off from work, right? So if I don't have to take off from work because I have no pain because I'm monitoring my posture, that's huge. Or when we are educating our students on going out and educating the field of their patients, of those that are spending extended periods of time at their desk, that how can that student best encourage their patient to decrease their pain.
And they can also get a hold of you in person, right? And you
Yes,
can
so
kind of do a live eval, and that you can tell them exactly what's going on.
Yeah, so our office is an open door. So if anybody wanted to come in or email me and contact me to come to their desk and look at their workstation, I would be happy to do that.
And there's a lot more that goes into that too. Like, people think that they have neck pain. Okay, it's something that's going on from here up, but it's not necessarily just that. Like, it can be just exactly how your seat is or where your feet are. And there's the whole thing and not just this area.
So when I do, if people get the chance to visit the blog, I'm not just talking about sitting at your desk, because, some faculty are going to say, well, no, I don't teach online, or I don't sit at my desk for extended periods of time, but how do we position ourselves in our classroom? Think about students who are taking notes all day long and how you're hunched over your desk constantly. I do see very poor posture of our students in the classroom sometimes. And yeah, you just want to stop class and be like, all right, this is a great learning experience. You need to sit up and let's learn from this. Just positioning yourself in the classroom and educating the students and how best way for you to stand in the classroom. So feel free to visit the blog or contact me if you have questions.
And I'll put the blog address along with the article that goes along with this
Thank
podcast.
you.
So we will definitely send some people your way. And you know what is so interesting, because I read the piece before our podcast today, and one of the things that I wish was different about our job is the fact that we do have to sit at our desks a lot, whether it's just grading or whether it's prepping for class. I mean, I'm literally sitting at my desk 4 hours a day, at least, if not more, depending on the term. You know, for example, this term, I'm only having one day class and it's an evening class.
Yeah.
So almost every day, all day, I'm
Extended
sitting at my
periods of time.
desk. And I'm so glad, like, I never even thought about that. And I'm so glad that I read the article, because now I'm
Thank you.
totally rethinking everything.
I wonder
Well,
how many people just sat up.
Well, that was my goal. My goal is for that, as you read it, like, oh my goodness,
Okay,
I need to be straightening up. I need to open up my chest more, because now I have this rounded shoulders, and no wonder my back hurts so bad, and now I need to sit up tall. And so that is my goal, as people were reading the article, that they were correcting themselves right then and there.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, and I want to say, I think it goes much more beyond just like our posture, but it matters how we carry ourselves every day, in our mentality and how we walk about through life, and how kind of just standing up and letting ourselves breathe and having a nice deep full breath. And you know, there's a lot of stress that goes into those postures
There is,
too.
and I'm glad that you made that point, Austin, because still too, when you read further on the blog about how our pain can really affect our personality. So if I'm having extended periods of neck pain or headaches because of the way my computer screen is positioned, I'm going to take that out on my coworkers or my students, that you'll be able to tell that I'm not myself. So hopefully, by decreasing our pain and decreasing our discomfort, that we can actually carry in more positive energy to our classroom, positive learning experience for our students, more student engagement. If I'm just hunched over the computer, you're not going to be able to follow my classes, or you're not going to feel that engagement in that classroom, versus if I'm walking around and I have good posture, that can really play a role.
Those
with our
emotions
students.
travel too. So if you're upset and you're not having such great class, and then your students get upset, and then they go to the next class kind of
It's that trickle
defeated, and it can trickle down.
That brings me to the next point. So we're talking about traveling emotions, and Professor Wagner, I know you have a big part of our class is talking about those chronic nagging injuries and how it might not just be our posture, that there's so many other things that can affect how we perceive pain, and it's like an experience. How do you talk to people about that, or how do you get the conversation going that our model in the healthcare field right now is what I consider is highly biomechanical, and there's a lot of other factors to go into it.
There really are. And I think we as clinicians have to not just look at the body and the injury or the problem or the symptoms. We have to look at the person as a whole. So it's not just what they're presenting with. Okay, they have numbness, they have tingling, they have 8 out of 10 pain, but we have to say, okay, but what did you do today? How did your day go? How are you feeling? Sad, upset, frustrated, because those can carry over, and all of those emotions can increase someone's pain. So yes, you're 8 out of 10, but you weren't able to go to bunco, or you weren't able to go to your poker night because you were in so much pain. That made you more upset because you're not able to do the things that you're normally able to do. So, okay, so let's think of a different way around that. You can't sit for an hour. Okay, but can you sit for 10 minutes? Okay, so you could play 3 hands, get up, walk around, go to the bathroom, come back and try again. And I think that we have to dig into what our patient's story is and see, what are you doing at home? What can we fix? What can we change?
And the
Would you say the same?
the psychological aspect of physical therapy as a whole plays such a big part in our job. And we were talking about a little before this, but that when we educate our patients and spending that time with our patients, is that we really need to understand where the patient's coming from. I can't just treat their pain, because the second they leave here, that pain is going to continue. I need to treat maybe more of a psychological aspect of that patient. And I think a lot of the time, physical therapy, we hear the term physical and think that's all that we do, but we do treat more than just that physical aspect of that patient, is listening to them, hearing their concerns and their worries, what are their emotions behind things, and helping to treat the patient in that respect as well. Sometimes just listening to the patient
It's
goes
enough.
an entire way. You may spend an hour with a patient and you may only get your hands on that patient for 15 minutes, but 45 minutes of it, they were venting to you. That can really help decrease
make a
their
difference.
I mean, it plays such a huge role. And I think we sometimes don't think about that being in our field.
I would have never thought about that being a part of physical therapy. That's really, really insightful.
I was just going to say, I say that a lot, like with my students who are just going out in my professional behaviors class. And I don't think that I don't think you'll really get it until you're out there. And then that happens to you. And a patient starts talking to you and you're like, okay, I have so many other things to do, but I'm just going to sit here. I'm just going to listen. And then like you do a journal entry to me and you're like, that just changed the way I thought about it. That just changed exactly how I feel on every patient and how to approach it, because it just makes a huge difference.
Getting their trust, their buy-in, like that's huge, that we just stand there.
Absolutely.
And we're a therapist in so many other ways than physical.
Exactly, because most patients don't want to be there. Let's be honest. Their physician forced them to be there, or their child, if it's an elderly person, their child's pretty much dropped them off and they don't want to be there. So if I'm just doing the physical aspect of physical therapy, that's not going to encourage my patient to come around more often. I want to treat more than just that. I want to have that bond, that relationship. Half the time, my patients, I worked with a geriatric population, majority of the time, I treated them as my grandparent. I wanted to have that relation. I knew their family by name. I'd ask about their family. And that really plays such a role in our therapy, and having that connection that they wanted to come back. They wanted to come to therapy then.
They wanted to tell you how the wedding was that weekend.
Yeah, exactly. It's true. That's how they feel.
You know, I have the fortune of having a lot of PTA students in my COM 101 class, and honestly, and the first week of class I have them, you know, hey, what are you here for? What major? That kind of thing. And in my feedback that I give to them, I will try to use it in that exact perspective. Like, we do a whole unit about listening. Sometimes people maybe aren't buying into having to take the class because, you know, much of your program is very focused on just your coursework. So when sometimes they have to take some of these other classes, they're like, what's this all about? But I strive to tell them how important it is to communicate with your patients, and how really that makes the difference in a successful PT or PTA versus maybe an unsuccessful one, because they don't have those communication skills that are needed. And especially in your field, the communication is absolutely urgent and needed, because if they're not doing the things that you need them to do when they're between appointments, they're not going to have any growth.
No, they're not.
Communication truly is key with our profession.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you say that, and that you can use this in your classes, because it really is going to help our students understand, okay, why am I sitting in this communications class? Well, honestly, every day of your life spent in physical therapy is communicating. You're not only communicating with your patients, you're communicating with your coworkers, your bosses, insurance companies.
Nurses.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much that plays a role in it, that you can't just communicate with your peers. It's way more than that.
And I know we've said this before, but the more that you're able to communicate and educate them on what's happening, the better response you're going to have, because the more educated you feel, the more apt you are to participate. And that's key.
And I think, too, having all of the professors that we have in our PTA program, we have all been clinicians for an extended period of time prior to starting, that we can use our real life examples. And that plays such a role. You know, if I just tell Austin, at some point you may have a patient that does X, Y, and Z, versus telling, all right, Austin, this is exactly, I had a scenario that was just like this. This is how the patient presented. This is what I said. And this was the outcome. That I can say some of the things that maybe communication-wise I have used that went wrong. You know, that there's things that I have said that a patient was screaming at me that I can learn, oh, I shouldn't be saying things like that. And I can use that for my students. That, you know, and one of the key things, and I see your face, Paul, of like, what could really anger your patient like that? And one of the key things never to say to your patient was, I understand what you're going through. Because unless you have been there and had your knee operated on, unless you are on stage 4 cancer, dying of this condition, you do not understand what that patient is coming from. So I stress to my students with communication, there are some things to avoid saying, and that was the one. And I learned the hard way, never to say I understand what they're going through unless I 100% understand.
And all you're trying to do is just be empathetic, but at the same time, that's not what they want to hear if you've never gone through
exactly.
something like that. Austin, I think we have time for one more question, then I have a quick one that I want to end with.
Actually, Professor Miller, I wanted to just go back into your realm for a quick second. How can social media be detrimental to us healthcare professionals? I think sometimes it kind of gets in the way. It might help, but I think sometimes it's not so good too.
To me, the biggest issue that I see is, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's just self-diagnosis. Everybody's trying to
Absolutely.
diagnose everything they have,
Yeah.
and they go into, and look, WebMD, it's wonderful for what it is, but unfortunately, I think too many people take too much stock in what they're finding online instead of just going to the doctor. And to me, that's the biggest issue. I'll have people, see people on Facebook saying, here's what's wrong with me. Does anybody know what's wrong?
Yeah,
like
all the time.
Go to the doctor. Don't ask your friends on social media about that. And so I think that in a general sense, when we think about social media, what we're trying to do is it's changed everything. It's changed how everyone communicates. And now everybody is so used to communicating that way after the last 10, 15 years that they don't bother to go to an expert. They just think they kind of crowdsource their healthcare. And yes, I know healthcare is so expensive and there's no signs of that slowing down. But the bottom line is if there's something seriously wrong with you, you should go to the doctor.
Yes.
Don't go to WebMD because, every single thing leads down a path that you don't want to go down. So that's my issue with social media and healthcare.
And physical therapy has even changed a little bit now where they have direct access. So with certain insurances, you don't have to see a physician before you come see us. So you can call us directly, some clinics and say, I am having pain in my shoulder. Does my insurance cover it? They'll look it up. Yes, it does. And then you can go straight to a therapist and they can say, well, this is what we think is wrong. You should come here for a few weeks, see if it resolves. If it doesn't, then you can go see the physician.
Okay.
Yeah, it's making our job a little bit more challenging.
I think one of the most challenging things is when you have someone in therapy and they're like, oh, well, I looked it up and it says that I should do this. No, but that's not what you have. Like, you have a herniated disc and not just a back sprain, so you shouldn't be doing that exercise. You should be doing this exercise. And they're like, but let me show you. I looked it up on Google. And I'm like, but Google's not the doctor. I went to school.
A friend of mine had a herniated disc and had to get neck surgery. And he was out for almost 2 months. But now he feels great. So.
Yay!
All right. Well, I think that's about the end of today's podcast. But I did want to end with this. So this is coming out at the beginning of the summer term. What are some big things that you have coming up this year? Any big events that you have? Or even just things that you do yearly that we can look forward to?
My students are going out on affiliation in July. So that's pretty exciting for me because I get to see them. They'll go out on 2 different affiliations, and then I'll go see them out in the offices where they are. So that's exciting.
So you teach, and you're also in charge of the field work, and you're placing students at different places.
Yes.
So you're teaching for part of your load, and the other part of your load is spent. Do you cultivate some of these as well? Because that's part of my job that I do for our department is try to cultivate new sites for internships.
Yep,
so that's
absolutely.
your job as well.
Yeah. So if there's this new site out on Route 22 that I'm going to go visit sometime this week. But yeah, so if I see a new physical therapy clinic, someone that we don't have a contract with, I'll try to go out and kind of visit on my way. Say, hey, how are you? I'm from Central Penn, and kind of create that relationship and let them know about our program and what we do, and that we're always looking for sites for our students.
Awesome. And Taylor, anything coming up in the next 6 months between the beginning of the summer term and the end of the year? When's your new cohort start?
So our new cohort is starting in July. And then our next cohort will be in January. So the nice thing with our program is that we do accept students twice a year, which is fantastic. Not all of the majors can say that. So it's great for our field for admissions twice a year. But our oldest group is taking their boards in July, so that is very exciting.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So hopefully all of those students that are not currently on our campus right now will be sitting for their PTA boards. So we wish all of them such luck with that. Yeah. And then Austin's group will be going out on their affiliations and sitting for their boards in January. So that's very, very exciting.
Are you nervous yet?
I'm scared.
Yeah.
That January is going to come around sooner than you think. So.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I just want to thank everybody again, Austin, for first and foremost, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for your hard work with the Nightly News. I appreciate having somebody from the health sciences in our club and keeping us up with what's going on. You've done some wonderful articles. Second podcast you've been on, so hey, it's just an absolute pleasure, and I wish you didn't have to leave.
Go
I'm
Austin.
jealous.
Thank you.
I'm jealous, and because I don't want you to leave. I want you
Yeah.
to stay
We
here
don't.
forever.
We don't either. We enjoy Austin in class. He's such a great student. He works so hard that we would love to keep him as well, but not that he wants to stay here with
Right.
us
You
all
got
the
to
time.
promote someone from the younger class to come up and take your place.
So you guys can help me with that.
No, we
Okay.
got you.
And we would absolutely, from the Nightly News, absolutely love somebody from the health sciences just to help us keep up with what you guys have going on. Okay.
And we want to thank Austin as well. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
promoting our program. And we absolutely love PTA, but we want other students to hear these things and to want to come to our school as well. So thank you so much
Thank
for all
you.
your hard work and dedication.
Austin's
Thank
last
you.
podcast was a tearjerker, honestly.
I know.
hearing about how he went from a field that he wasn't passionate
Mm-hmm.
about to coming to one where he's extremely passionate about. And I think
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
We're so lucky to have him. So thank you.
And you can
Austin.
see it too. You can see how passionate he is about it.
Without a doubt. Well, hey, thank you so much. This
Thank
is the
you so much
first
for
time
having us.
both of you have been on a podcast, so I hope that the nerves have relaxed and subsided somewhat. But I just want to thank you both for coming down, and
Thank
we'll
you
have
Thank
to have
you
you
for
back
having
again
us.
soon.
It
We
was
really
glad.
appreciate it.
All right, well, that's it for another Nightly News podcast for Austin Steiner, and which unfortunately probably his last podcast. So we really appreciate having him and wish him all the best. For instructors Taylor Lentz, Maggie Wagner, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
All right, and that's it for another Nightly News podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and we'll catch you again next time.